Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the September 29th edition of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Colin, Dowe, and I'll be guiding the conversation this evening. But as we start every week, thank you so very much for sharing part of your Monday evening with us. Whether you tuned in on GBN Television, listening in on GBN Radio, or logged on to any of our social media platforms, you're the ones that make it happen, and we're always appreciative that you're going to be spending some time with us. We're tackling a very important issue, negative issue, unfortunately, and we are addressing school bullying and violence, looking at what it is, how it occurs, why it occurs, and what can we do to reduce, if not resolve this. We have three esteemed guests with us. I will go from my extreme right to left. Coparal Michael Redhead, who is with the Community Relations Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. Coparal Redhead, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right, and two repeat guests, Mr. Pearson Stroud, who was with us just a couple of weeks ago. We know that he is the head counselor within the Ministry of Education, and we have him back. Pearson, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
All right, and whenever we have school matters, we seem to be pulling on the expertise and insights of Mr. Eddie Montee Greenidge. Eddie, welcome back to Beyond the Headlines.
Good night again, Colin. Good night to all the listeners and viewers. It's nice to be here again. Always a difficult subject. You know, it's always good to be able to weigh in on serious matters.
All right, and we certainly appreciate that. We'd like to start with just bare definitions. And Pearson, allow me to draw on your expertise. We throw the term bullying around, but when we speak of bullying, what really is bullying?
Well, basically, bullying will be defined in terms of the literature as any intentional behavior that is meant for harm from either individual to other individuals or groups of persons to other groups of persons. And the intention is to hurt. The intention is to make one feel less than the other. And simply that is really the crux of the matter when it comes to bullying.
Okay. Are there different types of bullying? What are the forms that bullying can take on?
Bullying can come in different forms. It can be physical, so somebody hitting, somebody being physical, but it can also be verbal. Boys or males tend to be more physical in terms of the bullying, and females tend to be more verbal in terms of how they approach that type of harming in that direction. So these are really the ways that persons tend to, and as human beings, that's how we tend to show force. It's a power dynamic. One feels or tries to present themselves as being better off or more powerful than, and then we might use words or it might be physical.
Okay. When we say harm, because if you fret me and a coffee in your face, am I a bully? Or is it that I'm angry and acting out on that anger? Where do we make the distinction?
So as the definition says, it's intentional and repeated. And so that is where the bullying comes in. When there seems to be a systematic intention for the person to hurt, but it is continuous and unrelenting to some extent.
Okay, so it is not necessarily a singular act.
No.
Be it of violence in terms of physical or hurtful words, but it is something that
intentional and repeated.
Intentional and repeated.
Yes.
Okay. Corporal, does the police get involved in bullying? Where do you yourself make a distinction between an act? And while we will start off speaking of schools, but I strongly suspect bullying don't only take place in schools, right? So how does the RGPF manage bullying? Are there reports that you receive? What's the case?
Well, most definitely doesn't happen in schools only. It happens in the workplace, all different aspects of society. Obviously, we're specifically speaking to schools here. And of course, it does happen at schools. One of the things that I've realized over time is that the police normally get involved at the latter part of the bullying. Sometimes it occurs over and over, and when it gets more serious in terms of harm being done to someone, that's when the police usually, they call the police and the police get involved. And what I want to encourage, and early up in the conversation, is that the police get involved from an earlier stage, that they call the police, the principals, the teachers call the police on an earlier stage, where we can speak to the students. And what we do from the community relations perspective is that we go out to the schools and we ask what are the issues, speak to the students. So we do have early primitive mediation taking place, right? So we speak to the students about what issues they might be having. The teachers, principals reach out. One of the principals that do a very good job at that is the Boca principal, Ms. Hagley. She does a very good job at calling us anytime she has any issues. And I'm glad he gave the definition of bullying, because a lot of parents, they think that bullying is sometimes an isolated incident that happened. The student could be having a bad day, you know? But he stressed on the continuous, of it happening continuous, and that's where you see the bullying taking place.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're called, is it the bullying or the bullied retaliating? And I just want to see when because when it escalates to that extent to call the police, is it somebody retaliating, or is it that it has gotten to the extent that the police has to be called in?
Yeah. It happens on both sides. So it happens from the bully and from the person being bullied. So well, obviously when it reaches the latter part, is the person normally lashing out who was being bullied for that long period of time. We're all human beings and we can only take so much. You know, the emotional stress and all of that. You're in a school environment, you're learning, and someone's always on your back. That's characteristic of a bully. They're always on your back, always in your head, always in your ear, and you know, you can only take so much, and they lash out. So we respond to those issues. One of the beautiful things that we have as our organ in the police force that the commissioner saw fit is that all the different stations, we have zones, so different stations are responsible for different zones throughout the tri-island state. So for example, the Central Police Station, we're responsible for the Anglican High School, and you can see the proximity, it makes sense. Right? The South St. George Police Station, they're responsible for the Cali's Government School, right? And the Blessed Sacrament School in their vicinity. So we normally have the police officers going out, speaking to the teachers, speaking to the students, any issues that they may have. I myself have been out with my sergeant and other personnel in my department, and we've been very instrumental in speaking to the students, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay. I guess I'm a little bit surprised here, because you said South St. George is responsible for Blessed Sacrament and Cali's Government. Those are primary schools.
Definitely.
Are we seeing bullying in primary schools, and to the extent that the Royal Grenadier Police Force has to be called in?
Right. I think it's, in my opinion, you know, we always say we don't see things happening, but just because we don't see that it's not reported doesn't mean that it's not happening. But I think that it is happening, maybe to a small extent. I think it may be happening, but because of our intervention and because we're there, we're able to nip it in the bud, so to speak, and deal with a lot of the issues early. We do get calls, but as I say, sometimes it's isolated incidents.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Montee, you did mention in terms of parents quite often believe it's a one-off. How easy it is for a parent to accept they might be parenting a bully? Or do they recognize it at all?
Well, what I would say is, in my experience, because I've been around the block quite a bit with regards to, I've always served on PT, whether it was for the SMOERC, Anglican High School, and just recently at the Green Street Primary School, so even at the preschool level. One of the things that what I've realized is that there's always a level of hesitancy for parents to accept, right? That their child might be a bully or their child might be misbehaving. And I think that falls on the backdrop of the fact that the behavior sometimes are learned behavior and they themselves do not want to accept, right? That they are encouraging such behavior, right? I want to go a step further to say that I've always advocated and say that children are what they see, right? I'm not going to pretend as though parenting is the easiest job, but as parents, we have a responsibility to give them that foundation, make them understand how to interact with their peers, right? And how to resolve conflict at an early age. And I say early age even at that toddler stage, because I personally had experience recently with my son. Just within 1 week of going to school, he came home with scratches all over his face, right? Which, you know, I'm a much more seasoned person now, that I obviously would have dealt with it in a calmer matter, go to the principal, go through all, you know, a younger version of me with a you know,
you can't fight it up preschool child.
So you know what I mean. But it's a difficult thing to watch at your son that you just deliver to the school in a, you know, and then to come and collect him, and you know. Right. So it is a serious issue whereby parents need to start taking responsibilities, and not just that, the things that we see as being cute and funny at toddler stage, that's where it begins. Yeah. Because when we see our little boys and girls, whether it's they're fighting and hitting the bigger sisters and hitting whoever it is, and we laughing, you know, as though it's a joke, you know, there's no, we teachers sending the wrong message that violence, right? They may not be able to make that determination at such an early stage in life. They may see it on a television, they may see it in cartoons. They can't make that connection that sometimes they have that physical strength to hurt somebody. So it is for us and incumbent upon us to stop them and say, no, this is not correct, this is wrong. Taking something that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to you, so you have to give it back or ask for it. These are the things you have to start implementing from since toddler stage. Because if we don't do that, these are the people or the young persons that just say become bullies. Because I always say we don't have a youth or a children problem, we have a parenting problem. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Dowe, I'm a student of psychology at St. George University, so hearing me speak about the influence of parents and the kids, you reminded me of social learning theory by Albert Bandura. And it says that, you know, children are a product of their environments at home, and it's things that they see their parents do. You know, there's the famous study with the Bobo dolls where they show the parents or the adults hitting the dolls, and the children in almost every instance replicated the behavior that they saw. Right. So it's very important, as you were saying, that the behavior in the home is of a positive nature, and a nature conducive to good behavior, so that they do the same at school.
Right. Person, well, we got into psychology now. You are the counselor among us.
You did not need me here.
But if we are to speak of in groups,
yes,
and this probably might be one of the challenges.
Yes,
we make distinctions. We see people as being different.
Yes,
and being different brings about a challenge. So whether one is different because they learn differently, they're different because they walk differently, they look different, you know, whatever it is, sometimes that attracts attention and causes problems. I'm just speak a little bit.
No, it does. I mean, the reality is that we tend to, as human beings, we form cliques very early. We find relations and we find connections with persons who look like us, who behave like us, who we find we relate to, and sometimes, unfortunately, we see a difference we interpret difference to mean problem, and that's one of the issues that we have. I tell my children, I tell my co-workers, when I work with people, you and I can disagree, but you can still be friends. We can still be able to communicate with each other, even if we disagree. That's okay. It is all right to disagree. It is all right for me to have a different view from you, but I don't have to hate you. And unfortunately, we've come to the place where unless you look like me and behave like me, or you're not, and if you don't fit into the mold that I have in my mind as to what is supposed to be acceptable, then unfortunately we have a tendency to treat others who are not like us in a lesser way, or we view view them as somehow not as important or not valued as we are. And that is one of the issues that we do have.
Where do children get this from? Because really and truly, I don't know that a child knows black, white, English, Spanish, etc.
As Montee said, as Dr. Montee said. but seriously. But the point is, the point that he made is really a really important one. The truth is, we are dealing with learned behaviors. Children model. Mandura, the others, Skinner, the rest of them speak to the fact of modeling. They speak to the fact of children observing behavior. The truth is, we do have a very violent society. We have normalized violence to a large degree. Our children are seeing violence through the media. We are making it, we're laughing at it, we're making fun of it, and if the child's mind, as he correctly said, if at 5 years old, at 7 years old, I am seeing this, I do not have the mental prowess at the moment to distinguish that this is not acceptable, that I need to edit myself, and we don't have that at that point. Unfortunately, I'm learning and I'm taking in all of that information, and I grew up with that understanding. For me, I interpret that as okay because he's knocking over your head, and when back in the day, that's no longer trying to look at those anymore. But when we had things like Roadrunner and those kind of cartoons, because you knock him down and he come back up, and for children, they see that, and they in their mind they see it as okay, and yeah, he'll be okay, he's all right because he's going to come back up, because their brain isn't at the developmental stage where they can perceive that this is going to harm, and it's a permanent harm, and so they grow with that possibly understanding.
Coparal, where does bullying occur? I mean, when you are called in, where is it happening? Is it happening in the classrooms, school grounds, after school, bus terminal? Where is it happening?
Well, funny enough, everywhere you said, it happens every and anywhere it can, right? It's not exclusive to any specific area, and that's why we have to be watchful sometimes. You know, back then we had a community where we were inclusive. Everyone looked out for each other and looked out for signs of these things. So that's why I stressed earlier, it's very important for the teachers to look out for any abnormal behavior in their students. If you find a student is reclusive, but they're always isolated by themselves, they're not included in the group, they're always on the side, they're always bantering with someone. If they are two, you're always seeing one always talking over the other one. These little signs, they can give an indication that bullying is occurring. And that's where you refer. And there are so many mechanisms.
And I just want to draw out a little bit on what you said.
Yeah.
The talking over is essentially a sign of disrespect.
Yes.
And that is an inclination of the groundwork to bullying.
Definitely. It has to do with power. I'm powerful, and I'm exerting that power over you. Yeah? And there's normally fear associated with it, so they put the victim in a state of fear. And that's why sometimes they're afraid to speak out and tell the teacher, look, I'm being bullied. They may not say that they're being bullied, but they'll say they're being constantly harassed. They listen for those little cue words so that you can know what's happening.
Okay. And who is the bully? If we can define it, can we look at a certain gender, a certain age, status? Who is the bully?
Well, I would say, Colin, the bully is anybody, because having experience in an all-girls school, and that's maybe an area that is not spoken about a lot, there are even prevalence of, in let's say in an all-girls school, there are some level of, and I am using the term bullying guardedly here, right? When it comes to even sexual preference. We have had engagement, as fathers in a school, we have engagement with classes and speak to them, and sometimes when you hear some of these girls open up, is like, is it okay? I remember we had this big conversation, is it okay for someone to try to force, a relationship on you, and all you're telling them no? And as you defined it earlier on about the repeated and continuous, whether you want to call it harassment, but is trying to get somebody to do what they don't want to do. So to me, bullying is just about anybody who's want to impose themselves on another person. I always tell people, I always see this something we have to overcome. We as human beings are selfish by nature. It has to be a learned behavior to curb that, because from the time we come into this world, we have we latch on to our mom, we feeding that is ours, right? We getting our feeding that is ours, everything, the toys that is theirs, the clothes that's theirs. And it's true that's socializing our kids is so important that they have to learn, and that sharing thing is an important aspect of the conversation, because as simple as that, if you can't share with your peers, and that selfish streak comes in, then you figure anything you want and you want to have it, you could take it, right? So they'll say bullying could just be about anybody, as long as we don't get to overcome these little natural intuitions that we have.
Okay. So we had Eddie talking about all girls school, but generally when we speak person, we think of boys. Why is that?
Because mostly it tends to, most of the research and most of the literature out there tends to indicate that boys are more physical when it comes to their acting out or negative acting out behaviors, and as a result, that is what gets the attention. And so that's what people tend to focus on. But as he would have indicated, anybody can. Girls can be extremely abusive when it comes to how they speak, the taunting, some using social media, sending threats and sending really negative, unfortunately negative messages to their classmates and their compatriots. And so it's something that we have to pay very close attention to. Anybody, and the truth is, boys tend to be the ones everybody talk about because they tend to be the ones who do it physically.
But you mentioned because there's the cyberbullying, which is a new phenomenon.
Yes,
but are you suggesting it's just a new tool?
A new tool.
To bring people down, whether it is speaking negatively about them or telling untruths.
Or telling untruths. Or just deliberately trying to frustrate and harass and make someone feel small. Because that's the innate issue here. Wanting to make that person feel that they're less than, or you have this idea that, and you know, some of the research indicates that in a lot of cases, persons who bully are bullied themselves. Significantly so, a very large percentage of persons who are bullied are themselves victims at some point. And so that is one of the ways that the individual feels that they can have some kind of control over their lives, is to inflict what was inflicted on them.
Okay. Is there because we spoke of power, is it a socioeconomic phenomenon as well, in that I am better than you because I have this and you don't? Or is it a flip in that I don't have, you have, and therefore I will be imposing myself on you? What has been your experience?
From my response, I've seen both. A lot of the youths that we've seen who have been bullied, when you go down to the root and the basis of where they come from, their background, and so some of them come from a lot of dysfunctional families. Okay. And then with the dysfunction, you have socioeconomic decline, right? So because of that lack of resources, they come to school, they see someone who has more than them, and they tend to bully them because I don't have it, why you have all that I don't have, you know? And then the other way where someone may have, and they might look down on someone who doesn't have, they might bully them because I'm better than you, and that's how they see it.
Okay, okay. Are we seeing, because we are again going in schools, do we see the nerd being bullied because he or she is doing well? Or are we likewise seeing the flip? I learn differently, and because I learn differently and I don't get it as quickly based on the teaching methods imparted, I'm bullied, I'm made to feel less. Do we see both?
Yeah, I would say yes, because although it might be learning and the way different students learn, it still boils down to the haves and is that you have the potential or the ability to grasp things faster, and you shine in the class, and I'm in the background, so I fade away in the background here, and I feeling small, right? So I have no other choice but to show out in a different way, whether it is to try to make that person that might be studying hard or have that foundational system at home to belittle them in every sense of the word, you know. So you have that, as we call it, nerd, because it's a cultural thing. We've seen it on television and in TV shows and so, right? But as I say, people get bullied for all different forms. You know, sometimes we had that conversation not too long ago about there's the spray gun bags, right? That was it was just a symbol of maybe the haves, or the perceived haves, because the spray gun bag was something that everybody wanted to have, because the bag in style, the cost was, to me, in my opinion, obscene, right? And it came to the point where persons were stealing the bags or parts of the bags because there's the authentic ones and I guess there's the fake ones.
Back in my day, it was a transport bag.
Transport
Transport was popular. Was popular, but the couple of $100 now, as I understand it, for the spray gun bags. And in order for it to be authenticated, there's a tag. So people, even if you have the fake one, you must have a tag on it to demonstrate that you're in the house.
In crowd, you understand? And if you don't have it, it's like something with shoes too, you know. You have to have a certain type of shoes. If you're the popular person in the school and everybody wants to be around you, and you know, so you always have all these dynamics that play into this, what we call bullying. And I say what we call bullying because I'm happy that he even defined the whole thing, because sometimes, as you pointed out in the introduction, a one-off something, because everybody threw around the term bullying these days. It doesn't mean that it's bullying. You have to be able to, as a young person, be able to deal with conflict as well, because there are going to be conflict along the way.
Person, Eddie was focusing on the haves and have-nots, and you know, or not necessarily haves and have-nots. It's just that we spend sometimes our money differently. And in such a case, is it okay, as we saw in the case in Jamaica, where the spray gun bags were banned? I mean, Jamaica was in the news for the fringe cut and the hairstyle and that kind of thing recently, right? But should we move to a stage where we have some level of demonstration of equality? I'm not even going equity in what is appropriate to come to school in order to avoid these types of conflicts?
That's why we have uniforms. That's where we started it. That same principle is what basically we had, because we could have gone how the North and so have gone, and that would make it even worse, because you're coming with your styles and all of that. And that's why I'm very happy that we still use uniforms. Whether we have to go in terms of bags to that level, I think for me, I would honestly prefer to speak to parents and help them to understand the implications of making decisions like that, and the possibility of what it can lead to, as opposed to necessarily legislating or telling somebody what. I see the value. Honestly, I do see the value in having the equal and so, but there are going to be other implications where I feel that I would like to do something for my child or so, because he might have get a reward because he's pushed, he or she has done her work, and you know, you want to give them a reward. I personally won't spend $400 in the bag. But I can't go there. Right. However, but I may want to give him something that he could use or she could use, and I wouldn't want to take that away from parents, because you want to motivate. Because children are motivated in different ways. Some are intrinsic, some are extrinsic, and you may have to use different means to get them to push in school and so. And I wouldn't want to take that away from them. So that would be my only leaning towards not going that way. But I do see the value in having a level playing field, and I think that's why we still have uniforms within our school system. I think we should never come out of that, but as much as possible we have to speak to our parents, the ones who really make the decisions, the ones who unfortunately may give the money, or the ones who may allow their children to go and do certain things that allow them to be able to purchase, because these are the things that we have to really pay attention to, because as Mr. Montee would have indicated, it's one of the issues that we have to pay attention to is parenting. On what grounds do I honestly just hand a 12-year-old $400 and something for a bag? I mean, those are decisions that we have to be very careful of.
We'll come back, we'll deal with parenting, all right?
Yeah.
So viewers and listeners, we'll take our first break. We'll be back shortly.
Let's celebrate the 19th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert on Sunday, November 9th from 5 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center with the best of Grenada, along with the Black Prince and the Pink Panther. Our partners, Hubbard's, GBN, Grenada Paper Products, Grenada Distillers Limited, makers of Clacks Court, Grenada's #1 rum, Brentville Credit Union, Bryden and Miners, Agents 4, Johnny Walker, Smirnoff Vodka, and Campari, Renwick Thompson and Company Limited, Pierre Marcel, Hard On Plus, Gittins Healthcare, Dollar Savers Auto Parts, Rise and Shine Supermarket, Springs Food Mart, Excel Plaza, Clem Vision Eye Center, Chillaxing Cafe, Ansett Coating, Victory Bar, Blue Bubba's PA Rental and Events Supply, Chateau de la Motte, Grenada, Captain Harris Apartments, Gem Holiday, Beach Resorts, Dana's City Inn, Glen Egg, Springwater, and the Grenada Trade Center. Sunday, November 9th, 5 p.m. Grenada Trade Center, the 19th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert. Please be seated by 4 p.m. Hubbard's Legends in Concert.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Greenidge is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Greenidge, energizing our Grenada.
Grenada, exciting news. Oasis Pet and Garden has expanded. In addition to our existing location, we're now open at our new location, Melville Street, St. George's, now serving you at 2 locations for even more convenience.
At Oasis Pet and Garden, we bring you the best products at the best prices nationwide. Check out our garden department for the best quality Pro Mix potting soil, vegetable seeds, and seedling trays, cocoa peat, liquid fertilizer, granular fertilizers, and more. Our livestock and livestock products are the highest quality and the best prices in Grenada.
Are you ready to take charge of your money, build wealth, and protect your family's legacy? Then join us on October 9th, 2025 at Radisson Grenada Beach Resort for your Financial Future 2.0, Legacy, Literacy, and Liberation, a one-day financial summit designed to break cycles, build wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. You'll gain real-life budgeting hacks, a money mindset reboot, steps to create generational wealth, and practical tips on investing, estate planning, insurance, health, and business finance, all from expert speakers who know how to turn knowledge into action. With 2 inspirational keynotes, 3 powerful panel discussions, and 6 breakout sessions, you will leave with your personalized action plan for success. Don't wait. Secure your seat today. Tickets are EC $350 at disruptiveleadershipconference.com/YFF. Your financial future 2.0. Your next chapter starts here.
Back, viewers and listeners, and we're addressing bullying in schools this evening. Before we left off, we mentioned the word parents, right? And I just want to get a sense from your opinion. Would you say that parents are responsible for creating bullies? I know it's a tough question, but you know.
I would say yes. Yes, because how we are socialized, it sets the trajectory of how we present ourselves to society and to the world at large, right? He made reference earlier on to even with the uniforms and all the things that the antidotes that parents put in there for children, whether it's for reward or whatever it is. I think that one of the things that we need to incorporate into all of this with the uniforms is modesty. I think modesty is an important ingredient with regards to our kids, right? I think there are certain things that are not appropriate for school. So even if you're going to reward your children, you can reward them for when they go out. But when it comes to schools, schools should be a place of modesty, just like the workplace generally is a place of modesty. And I say this to say because there's a reason why, for instance, we don't allow children to wear colognes or perfumes that is very, because now you're creating distractions and conversation pieces. And it's the same thing that's going to happen with giving them a sneakers that is a big name sneakers or a bag that is a big name bag. So it is incumbent on the parents to understand that you have to shape the youth, you have to shape your toddlers into what you want them to be, how you want them to present themselves to the world.
Is it a case, do you believe, that the parents feel as though they're falling short in one area and try to make up with it by the $400 bag and the $300?
It's a lot of overcompensation. Eh? Yeah. It's a lot.
Sometimes.
It's a lot.
Sometimes, yes, that is the case. But to make a blanket statement that parents are the cause or parents are making bullies, you have to be careful in the sense that, hear me out. The truth is, as the primary caregivers, we have significant influence over how our children are raised and what they become. But our children are not raised in isolation. They're not just raised in a home with just mommy and daddy, or mommy alone, daddy alone. Children are exposed to different environments. What I think we have to be very careful about as parents is what we allow our children to be exposed to. I think we have to be more judicious about what we allow our children to see, the type of friends that they have, the type of influences that they're allowed to have a contact with in terms of the community and where they are. And I think that more so may have a part to play in the type of children that we are putting out, unfortunately. I will not stand here and say that parents are raising bullies, but I think we have to be more judicious and be careful about what we allow our children to be exposed to, the media, those type of things. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Pearson did mention that quite often the bully is bullied. Yeah. Or was bullied, or is being bullied. I think probably a combination of all of those. I don't know whether it is from research or just from anecdotally. Are you seeing bullies, or are you responding at schools to bullies? and have also had to respond at the same homes because of domestic violence and the like.
Most definitely. They're not mutually exclusive. When we, as I said earlier, when we respond to the situations at the school, and what we've been doing more is getting more to the root cause of the issues, as opposed to in the past where you would just speak to the student and hope for a better change and look and see if they're doing better, monitor them over time. From the very first stage, you speak to the student, you also get the parents involved. When you get the parents involved, you normally see what they do, what kind of work that they do. Is it a single parent home? And of course, research shows that a single parent home, you would have some level of deviance, a higher level of deviance associated with it, right? It is shown, research has also shown that in fatherless homes, you have a lot more deviance associated, because you don't have that father figure to look up to. And we've seen it. We've actually, myself and my colleague, we've been father figures to a lot of students, male students specifically in the schools, and we've seen a big change in their behavior towards each other and in their schoolwork, in their performance, and overall well-being.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked if parents are creating bullies earlier on.
Yeah.
Are teachers creating bullies?
It can happen. And I have to speak from my psychological background also. I can't leave it out,
Right.
One of the things that can happen in the school is self-fulfilling prophecies. Sometimes teachers can make the mistake of labeling a student of being incapable of doing certain things, and they can inadvertently treat them in a certain way as a result of that cognitive bias that they form very, very early. So teachers need to be very careful how they treat students. Of course, not all students respond to information the same way. Some take a little more time. So teachers need to be very cognizant, because if I'm a student and I'm a little slower, that doesn't mean I won't be any less successful in the future. I may be a little slower. I need a little bit more attention. I can lash out.
Can I be just biased here?
Yeah.
Not slower. Your teaching method doesn't connect with me.
Yeah. I agree. Fully agree.
I mean,
fully agree.
That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
Right? But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So if I am perceived that I am being treated in this way, obviously students are smart. You can see they would feel like they are being treated unfairly, and then you have that behavior of lashing out. Who are you sitting next to me that think you're better than me? The teacher is treating you better than me. And it can create a lot of superstitious thinking in that student based on how the teacher treats them. They might even think that the teacher is intentionally giving them better grades. Sometimes they say the same things, but you get a different treatment as opposed to me. So it makes you feel less than, and that can manifest into me becoming a bully as a result of that treatment, that bias.
But doesn't it also, we see the case where that individual is therefore targeted by other students because they see the teacher as calling him dumb, big head, X, Y, Z. And therefore everyone else, because it's now acceptable, so the whole class would zero in on that individual.
Perfectly said, yeah. Obviously the students will look up to that teacher as a beacon of someone that I should emulate if I want to be successful. So when they see the teacher doing certain things, they would tend to follow. And before you know it, everyone, it can be really nasty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I want to chime in here a little bit. It would be rather unfortunate that we have teachers calling children big head within our school system, even up to in today's time.
But we are accepting that it happens.
We are accepting that it can happen. I have not personally observed it, so I cannot say it is actually happening. However, I want to be very clear here. The Ministry of Education is very, very clear about the fact that, especially when we have meetings with teachers, meeting with principals, we are always reminding them that we are living in a jurisdiction where we have a Child Protection Act, we have a law that protects children, that the fact that we are mandatory reporters ourselves, that we should not and we cannot be the ones who are perpetuating abuse of any form or any child, because we are actually mandated by law to report even if we suspect that a child might be abused. So it would be rather unfortunate that if we have incidents where teachers are themselves doing that. But I want to to hear say that the Ministry of Education is very clear, and if that happens, I am willing to bet that is very minimal in the sense that it's a small group of people that might be perpetuating. And I think all adults have to be very careful about, not just teachers, all police, me from the ministry, whoever. We have to be very careful about how we relate to children, and that we do not label them and call them names and so. But again, the ministry is very clear about the fact, and we always remind our teachers to be very, very careful about that. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what does the Education Act say about violence in schools and that.
All right. So the act does not speak to violence in school, but the act speaks to incidents where we have the principal having the authority, the school having the authority to discipline children for any form of misbehavior. And misbehaviors can be dealt with whether through suspensions, and there are a list of things that the school has access to do. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about schools not doing anything and all that, and I must admit to you here that our principals have been very proactive in many cases in trying to approach dealing with these negative attitudes.
You mentioned suspensions and so. Yes. Is corporal punishment still on the books?
Okay, corporal punishment is still on the books. However, it is very clear in the Education Act that it is either the principal or a designated. So no teacher in a classroom will just hit anybody's child. The act is very clear that it has to be the principal or a designated teacher, that the principal designates who would be able to. I want to also quickly say that the Education Act, it has been under review, and this is one of the areas where I am almost certain that we will have that being taken out very soon.
So
when
the principal or his or her designee can.
Only.
Does it speak to, one, where this can take place?
Yes. It speaks to where, it speaks to the fact that it should not be done in the open. It speaks to the fact that it should not be done in a way to embarrass the child. It should not be done in a way to cause the child to feel any sense of hurt in terms of mental hurt, and so it's very clear that it should not be done in an open space where children are humiliated. That's the word I was looking for. The act is very clear about that, and it speaks to how it is to be done and who is to administer.
When it occurs, and I'm stating to you, it occurs. It occurs in public. So child is humiliated.
Yes.
What type of recourse is there for child, for family?
All right then. So the Education Act again speaks to the fact that our principals are in charge of their schools. The reality is that any parent who feels that their child was disciplined, corporal punishment has been administered to them against the Education Act, they have that responsibility and they have that right to go to the principal to make that report. Now the principal has that responsibility to handle that situation with the teacher also. If the principal themselves is the one who has is the principal again, but let's be careful. But the principal says the parent of course has the recourse to inform the Ministry of Education, and because the act is very clear about how corporal punishment is to be administered. The Education Act is clear, and the parent has the recourse to call the Ministry of Education to write a report. I've seen many of them. Reports are written to the Chief Education Officer, because at this point the person who is responsible for all our schools, the Chief Education Officer, that position is to be written to, and we follow in terms of whatever recourse. Calling the parents, calling the school. I've been a part of many of those meetings where parents are not pleased, principals are calling, teachers who might be responsible calling, and we make sure that we attend to those issues.
What happens? Because we know what happened to the child.
Yes.
Child is disruptive. Child get beaten in front of his peers. Child probably have marks over his or her body, and there's a report.
Okay.
Can you give an example without calling name of consequences consequences?
All right, then. So there are two things that are happening here. If a teacher, whoever it is, inflicts punishment to a child where the child gets damaged in that way, we are dealing with two laws here: the Education Act and the Child Protection Act, because we are now talking about abuse. And if the parent wants to, the Child Protection Act can be enforced. This Child Protection Authority can investigate, and charges can be brought against any person who hurts any form of abuse to any child. That's one. The Education Act is also very clear that if the Ministry of Education feels that a teacher acted maliciously against a child, the recourse can be through the Public Service Commission. Reports can be sent, interviews done with parent, child, and information sent to the Public Service Commission with or without a recommendation to do whatever the Public Service Commission deems necessary based on the information that is being sent out.
Okay. And of course, if the behavior is so atrocious, the police will get involved.
Again, and that's why CPA will come in, because again, seriously now, and I want to be very frank here, if a child is hurt in that way, that's why I said the Child Protection Act, that law is very, very clear. CPA has total authority over a case like that and can be brought to the fullest extent of the law.
Okay.
Fullest extent.
Do we have statistics on how is corporal punishment being administered in schools? In other words, if there is there a guide? So for this offense, these are the consequences. And does the district education officer, for example, do an examination, whether it's on a termly basis, etc., to see these are the types of things that occurred in school. This is what was done by this staff.
Okay, so as it stands now, the Ministry of Education gets a document from all schools referred to as the monthly return. The monthly return basically speaks to all incidents. It comes from the log in the school with punishments, or all incidents, and that monthly return is perused by education officers. And of course, if there are red flags, the education officers are very prudent in terms of making sure that these things are so. A monthly return comes into the Ministry of Education. The education officers have full access to those monthly returns, and any red flags that are raised, they have the authority to address any of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just ask this as well. When we see, I'm going to just take just for a little longer on the corporal punishment. Is corporal punishment geared towards correction, rehabilitation, or are we seeing corporal punishment out of anger, out of embarrassment? In other words, a child did something that upsets the teacher or embarrasses the teacher, as opposed to corrective measures based on ill discipline.
Well, again, I guess that's me again. The truth is, again, we always encourage our staff, the implementers of the education system within the school system, that if corporal punishment is to be used, it is to be used as a last resort. We have counselors in the school system, we have school attendant officers, we have the police who assist us, and there are layers, and we really emphasize, especially since, as I said earlier on, the Education Act is being reviewed, and there's a very strong possibility that corporal punishment will no longer be on the books as a methodology to be used. We are encouraging already our staff to begin to use other methodologies in terms of dealing with children. To answer your question, to say that we are measuring whether teachers are using it to release their tension on a child or whether it's really meant to correct, that is not something I will be able to tell you here and right now. What I must admit that as unfortunately, that as adults, sometimes when we use that particular methodology, it's more about us than about the child, because it is really a last resort. It really should be a last resort. We really should be appealing to the child's heart as opposed to the child's skin, and we should try to make that to be the first treader in terms of any rehabilitation work with that child, as opposed to it being the first. Because one of the things that we, again, whether it's through training or so with teachers, teachers and even at teachers' college, and so these things are pressed, because if you use that as a first resort, eventually the child becomes desensitized to it and is no longer effective. And so using that as the first measure proves to be inadequate and proves to defeat the purpose.
Right.
It proves to defeat the purpose.
From time immemorial, we always say spare the rod, spoil the child. From the quote unquote a Christian community, and we believe innately. I always hear my grandparents, and so older persons in society, elder persons in society saying that's what was missing now. But I think we've evolved to a great extent in community, and it's proven that it's not the most effective means to rehabilitate children and to get them in a positive direction. We've evolved and we have so much different means now in terms of dealing with children. So I think it's sort of swept out the door a bit.
The question, let's say, you say, old people would say, this is what is missing now. How do we affect that balance between not being referred to as abusers, but yet still maintaining our cultural norms of teasing, etc.? Because one of the things you hear is that these children nowadays are so soft. But look at us, nothing wrong with us. We get too rap and we are right.
We got a lot of licks.
The problem is that you always hear in conversation people making references to the days of old, right? We are now turning out children and youths and young people that cannot deal with the everyday pressures of life. So it kind of sends a double message in that whether or not what we knew back in the day was more effective, right? I'm not making a determination on that. However, one of the things, and even I'm listening to you in your deliberation, in that I always put a lot of emphasis on how we are socialized, because even the teachers that are there that is teaching our children, they come from maybe broken homes too. They come from persons who have issues, right? So the way we socialize, I put everything when it comes to societal problems, really and truly, it comes back to parenting. It all comes back. That's the crux of the matter, right? And until we start handling and maybe approaching things from a psychological standpoint, right? Giving parents the help, because sometimes and I don't want to sound harsh, sometimes I ask myself if sometimes the conversations that we have, in society is just for entertainment value, because in my opinion, sometimes we know what the issue is. And we are not addressing the issue. The issue is parenting, or lack thereof, right? And until we start addressing parenting, so like when you ask the question, are we turning out bullies? Yes, it may sound as a hard or harsh way to put it, but the fact of the matter is we are turning out bullies. When we see our kids doing things and we laugh at it and we think it's okay, right? And these same persons come back being menaces to society. That is what we did, right? So it may not sound politically correct to say, yes, we're turning out bullies, but we are. Whether it's true, it's teachers, it's parents, it's society. Because it's society that raises the thing. And as much as you said earlier on, yes, the children, they don't go in isolation. That's why parenting is not an easy job. You have to be able to that counterbalance to all of those negative influences that they're going to see in school, walking home on the way from school, the block they had to pass by. We have to be that counterpoint. And we have to be the one always implementing those foundational principles, pounding it in the head every day, right? You can't, listen to me, you don't know when your daughter or when your son will meet a predator on the way down the road. So you always have to be a constant reminder to tell your children, reminding them how much you love them, reminding them what are the principles and what are those goals, and it is a continuous job. They don't know they often that you can't come and say, well, I tired today, so what is wrong today is right tomorrow.
Let me ask you this: has the PTA taken on bullying as a PTA, whether it is the interventions in homes to your colleagues in terms of the other parents, putting on seminars? What type of leadership role has the PTA taken when it comes to bullying, and should they?
Well, I cannot say that the PTA has taken it on
in a holistic way because we are guided and we are support structure for the institutions, right? The same framework that he would have described earlier on, we are still guided. So as, let's say, a decision president, I also sit on the board for the Anglican High School, for example. And if there are issues, serious issues, it is addressed from a board of directors standpoint, right? So as a sitting president, yes, that I would weigh in and we would, but these issues are still guided and still have to be channeled through the Ministry of Education. The school cannot act in isolation, right? Other things that we have done, I know they have teachers that have reached out to parents, to me, to speak to the classes on certain issues. We had an initiative that we did as a PTA some time back, and we had a talk show where we want to engage issues, you know, try to get some of the youths to come on board and have these discussions. You know, that was an initiative. We had what was the name of the show again? Anyways, it wasn't, it was kind of short-lived because too often these initiatives fall by the wayside because you don't see the interests. Everybody have their own things to do in the moment. They don't think it's important, right? You know, you have no idea how much I am passionate, especially when it comes to the way we as parents, right, enforce and administer and orientation for the Anglican High School, this last orientation for the beginning of the school. So I sat there, I presented, the principal presented, right, discussing all the school rules, the length of the skirts, the length of the socks, right? Everybody sat in the hall as though they understood and whatever the case may be. And I had the opportunity to walk in behind a group of about 3 or 4 mothers. I presume mothers because their daughters were in their company. And I listened to the way they speak around their daughters. What they feel all here is none.
Yeah.
Huh? What they want all your skirt long so far. Right? So when you speak like that, like a mother, right, in front of your children, what do you expect your daughters to do? They're going to be defiant, right? So that's why persons might find me hard on parents, but we have to understand that the same devices that we buy for them and we give them, they are a version of that. And what we upload into that hard drive, which is here, they would absorb. And when you, just like how you see those devices start glitching when you give them all the second-hand and third-hand programs, whatever it is, because now they're taking things from all over. The negative here, the negative there, they're going to start glitching too. And the glitches is now manifested in the bullying, in all kind of, they lash out, and all kind of negative behavior, violence, all this. So that's why I'm real passionate about parents and understand, and I'm not saying that you could do everything and still have challenges, but you have to. This is a 24/7 job.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And I agree with him greatly because most times when students are defiant or recalcitrant, it's because there's a divide. The child can't be in school and there's structure and everything is going on, and when they go home it's chaos.
Right.
There's a positive correlation between parents that they don't tend to their children's well-being as much. They tend to be more defiant in school.
Right.
So it's very important if they're at school and they have structure, when they go home they should have structure too. It's very important that parents stay in communication with the teachers. Find out what's going on in the school. They always say when you have the PTA, and maybe he can attest to this, when they have PTA, the students that are giving trouble, their parents don't show up.
Right.
So sometimes they don't hear what's happening. So it's
when
very important.
When you preach to the converted.
Exactly. They're already saved.
Right. Okay.
So it's very important to reach those parents also.
Okay. Yeah. All right, viewers and listeners, it's time for our final break. Of course, you can weigh in when we come back. 440-1252. That will be the number, but we'll be back shortly.
Welcome to Caracou, small in size, rich in spirit. As you step off the boat, you're greeted by smiling faces and warm island vibes. Your adventure begins here. Need a cozy place to stay? The Mermaid Beach Hotel has been a favorite for years. Waterfront views, clean comfort, and located in the town. In Bogles, the Roundhouse Cottages offers rustic charm with a touch of elegance. A peaceful hideaway surrounded by nature. Prefer something private? Dong Island Villas gives you space, sea breeze, and a home away from home feel. Wake up to the sound of waves and views that stretch for miles. We're ready to welcome you. When are you coming?
Remind yourself what life is all about. Adventure awaits in the all-new Photon Tunneler G7. Expand your lifestyle, your boundaries, your imagination. Find yourself in places where no one else can. Backed by our class-leading warranty and a national dealership network, you now have the confidence to go further. The all-new Photon Tunneler G7. Expand your lifestyle.
Distributed by Echo Blue Limited. Visit us on the Lansopine Main Road or call 405-4818.
Come on out, Grenada. Let's move to live. Sunday, October 26, 2025. Fitness walk beginning with warm-up at 2 p.m. at Progress Park St. Andrew. Organize your churches, clubs, family, and community. Great prizes to be won. Call 442-7450 to order your t-shirts now. Features and attractions galore to keep you moving. Hosted by the Health and Youth Departments of the Grenada Conference of Seventh-day Adventists.
Are you longing to taste authentic, flavorful dishes from Thailand? Then look no further. Konthai, the newest restaurant located at the back of Galleria Mall top floor, is the place to satisfy your taste buds for Thai dishes that are well seasoned with fresh local spices. They offer a great selection of sumptuous dishes that will tantalize your taste buds. Visit Konthai today because the food is good, the ambiance is great, and the staff friendly. Available on Carabites and Yogo Grenada. For more information, call 456-0074 or visit konthaigrenada.com or stop by the new Galleria Mall, Grand Anse St. George. I'll meet you there.
Viewers and listeners, we're addressing bullying in schools as this tonight's topic on Beyond the Headlines. You certainly can share your own views, ask your questions of our expert panel, 440-1252. That's the number. We look forward to hearing from you. Just share with us, is bullying a public health issue? Just to the depths with which it goes, the impact it has on individuals, but the multiply effect. Oh, we have a caller, so let's take that call. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yeah, good night, Colin, and good night to your guests. The issue of bullying is a very controversial and big topic. But if you look at certain, and I agree with one of the guests that says, we produce bullies. And we have always produced bullies. The extent to which is now is phenomenal. But we have to ask certain questions. And I want to start with a controversial one before I go to the more clear one. One of the things that we are not looking at is the environmental factors, which of course include the natural environment and the make-up environment, the socially made-up environment, which include television and so on and other medium. Now, in Barbados, nurses are under threat. In fact, there were 2 major meetings today in Barbados by the association because of violence against medical people. Barbados is not the only one. There are other places. I've seen violence in Trinidad, in schools in Trinidad. I've seen in Jamaica. It's unbelievable. But it is believed that the climate, the heat, is affecting people, apart from diet, which is another thing. And we need to look at those issues also, just as how we look at the socialization process. And some of the issues that have been brought out by your hosts, the way we talk to our children. I normally say to people, there's certain things you shouldn't discuss in the presence of children. And they think it's okay. So, because again, everything is broken down. We don't have boundaries and all that kind of thing. We behave erratic with each other. We behave uncivilized. Uncivil, maybe not uncivilized, but uncivil to each other. We need to bring back all of these things. And it wouldn't be coming by force. It has to become by engagement. And that's where I want to end. We have caused society to fracture. We have people who went away because of employment. For employment and for other reasons. So the structure that used to help keep us together, notwithstanding people praise the violence that used to be unleashed, and not in the form of discipline, but there was a structure in addition to that kept us together. It's no longer. In fact, in a lot of cases, we let the television and other social media be the parents of the children now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments?
Yeah, I agree, especially with the last point that Colin made. Right now, we have social media and, by extension, to a lesser extent, now television, right? Being our babysitters, being our, the mom helping with the homework, There's no one there to ensure that you did your homework or you did it to the standard that is required, and even double checking, So, until we start understanding, and it comes back to what I always hammer home, that point, that we as parents have to step up and do our jobs.
Okay.
Yeah?
We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hold on, let me turn down that radio. Yes. It's unfortunate that probably some such healthy discussions would be held at a time when the people will be listening most likely are not. But a lot depends on, a lot falls squarely in the laps of the parents. For example, parents say, don't take less from no child. Don't let nobody eat you. That's one thing that causes a lot of problems in school. We thought, besides telling the child, go and report to the matter to the teacher. Another thing, another problem that we have is that the government has paid the fees for all children go to primary, secondary, tertiary education. It means that children have a lot more money in their hands. A lot more money. And you see this problem that we're having about children gambling? That is as a result of that. Because if you're accustomed to giving your child $20 every week for bus and for break or whatever, lunch or so on, and the child don't want to pay anything now as fees or things like that, they have extra money that they use for gambling, which is becoming a big problem. Apart from the fact, of course, that gambling has become institutionalized in Grenada, because we have the lotto, the morning draw, the mid-morning draw, the lunchtime draw, the mid-afternoon draw, the nighttime draw, and everybody seems to be playing lotto. So, how do our children assess that? And then Yeah, I'll just couple that point for the time.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The idea is that even if you get some savings, because another education is free, you're not asked to pay directly for education. Because it's tax dollars paying for it. We paid. It doesn't necessarily mean, therefore, that the weekly allowance moved from $20 to $40 because you don't have to pay tuition.
Yeah, school is. There are two things. What you're saying, school is a microcosm of society, and I think that's the point that he's making, and it's a very legitimate one. The reality is that so many of the negatives that we find in the society, it comes in the school because we just basically and the point is, I was just saying, education is not free. I promise you, it's not free at all. Many bodies are paying for it. It's just that the rationale behind most of those interventions, whether it's school feeding, whether it's uniform program, is that they are really persons who really need that type of help. There are some children, I must admit to you today, that there are children who will not have a hot meal if we didn't have the school food feeding program. And we need to have some of those programs. Maybe they need to be a bit more streamlined. Maybe we have to be careful about how we just make it across the board for everybody, or what the case might be. However, there are people who really seriously need those type of interventions, and we have to have those programs.
Excellent, and agreed.
Yeah.
Good evening, caller. Welcome. Yes, go ahead, caller. Callers, our appeal is that once your phone is answered, you listen on the phone and not on the Go ahead, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good night to the panel. Good night to the program. I'm asking, earlier on you said that Mrs. Diane Abel-Jeffrey will be part of the program. Could you explain why she's not there tonight? And the next part of it, I would like to say that we should do a lot of more praying with our children. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that the new CEO acting was expected to be on the program this evening, and she's ably represented by Mr. Pearson Stroud. Can you respond?
The CEO has other commitments at this time, and she has asked me to fill in for her, and I hope I'm representing her and the ministry properly. Yes.
And we're certainly not going to be sidestepping because we all need the intervention of the big man. So, I'm hearing the social skills, the morality, the ethics expressed in the call for prayers. But those are the teachings that are important, that if we inculcate those in our children, we'll see less of the social deviance.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do within our guidance sessions, teaching the values, making sure that we do not force religion on children, but we do expose children, and children want to discuss religious and spiritual and biblical things. We do that through our guidance sessions, and we do try and make sure that we remind children that they are values, and we are not, as much as society seems to want to trend into this value-free society, at least here we still have a place for insisting and encouraging values.
There is something that makes us Grenadian, and we have to protect that fiercely.
Very much.
We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Go ahead, caller. We're listening. I will again just appeal that once the phone is answered, you listen on the phone, not your radio or television. Good evening, caller. All right, I guess that caller will call back. And the message, when you answered, listen on the phone for us, because we'll be coming to you in a short while. One of the things that, this month. Okay, caller is back, so go ahead, caller. Welcome. Yes, caller, go ahead.
Good night to all. I would tend to agree with the minister for the PTA, because I think the parenting styling has a lot to do with the bullying, and also the primary school, I think, needs to be looked at.
Okay. And we hear, because what I'm hearing from the caller is that it's learned behavior. Yes. So when she said that the styling, if that's how mommy communicates to me, then that's how I communicate to you, right? And see nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
And what we see happening at the secondary level, it's just now being manifested of something that was building since from preschool. Right. She said primary school, but even before primary school, since in preschool, because as I said, that's how you socialize your children.
One of the things that the research indicates, and we have another caller, so let's go. No problem. Keep them coming. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yeah. Good night.
Yes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Good night. For me personally, I think the two entities in Grenada that is responsible or partly responsible for the situation we are in today with children, I would say one is the government, and secondly the parents, and I will give my reasons for saying that. Now, the government lay laws and regulations down to every one of us, including all schools. Now, I would like to know, at the end of the day, we grew up in a society, at my age now, I grew up where the teachers who taught me in school, I respect them up to today. And they chastised me when I did something wrong. They disciplined me in ways that, they say flogging, I was flogged, but I never hit my teachers, because whatever they flogged me for was for something I did wrong. And I believe one of the things we have to look into, I believe the laws and rules governing not the Ministry of Education putting down on not chastising kids in terms of flogging, I believe it come from outside of Grenada. That didn't come from in Grenada, because our ancestors, our foreparents, my parents, my grandparents, my parents, and I went through it. And society was much better then than it is today. Now, I will look at it as a teacher. I feel hurt. I feel sorry for the teachers, because teachers are teachers who discipline children, have to spend most of the day with a child, and the child is being delinquent, and the child has to be disciplined one way or the other. Flogging is something, if you abuse a child, I could understand that you put laws and regulations down for that. But if a child is ill-disciplined and you flog that child, and all of a sudden now they ban flogging in schools. Now, at the end of the day, okay, there are different ways and means that you can discipline children, but flogging was one of the main ingredients for children not becoming bullies. Yes, children could become bullies because of lack of parents not giving them, they have nothing to eat, they go to school hungry, they're not getting the proper discipline they have at home, and they come home, they come to school, and then they're displayed to other kids. But at the end of the day, when you look back at it, if rules and laws and regulations are put in place to really deal with bullying in the true way as our ancestors did, I believe we have a better society, because the teachers who teach the school, if I was a teacher and I cannot discipline a child in school, and I walk out to the schoolyard and I going down driving or walking, and that same child is bullying somebody, I will walk past it. Because if I cannot discipline you in school, how can I discipline out of school?
Okay.
Now, in the outer world, I could understand why they say don't hit the child, because they live miles. I live in the outer world as well, and I don't even know my neighbor. So how could I discipline the child in the way that I could understand? In the outer world, they say don't beat. And there are many reasons why they say don't beat. But in a society like ours, everybody know everybody.
All right.
And if you talk to a child and you try to discipline the child, and the child has been very disrespectful to you, what would you do? What is the best decision? And I hope that they could look at it in a way that the government could enforce certain rules and laws. And I understand they said only the teacher and only the principal and a designated teacher. How could that designated teacher who was not in a classroom to see what the child was doing wrong has the right to discipline that child and flogging them?
Okay, all right, thank you, caller. Thank you. All right, we heard a lot there. And I'm hearing, though, the enforcement of the rules across the border, which is important.
Yeah. But a point I heard made, and you alluded to it earlier on about culture, right? And I'm one of the persons that I would never be a supporter of any form of abuse. But sometimes we have to be careful how we navigate the question of the corporal punishment and having a deterrent on the table. And because sometimes you could ask yourself, if you take everything off the table, then what is deterrent?
What is deterrent? Yeah. Okay. Well, we have another caller, so let's take that caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Yes, I'm calling to share on the bullying in school and what we can do to help as teachers. I probably believed in corporal punishment at one time, but now I'm thinking that it should be more so restorative practices rather than corporal punishment. We should focus on a lot of parenting as an education system, although I know I've had experiences where you have parenting program after school, but again, it's a comforted that usually comes when you go out into the community to target those who really need the help. They would hide, right? So, as I say, we focus on restorative practices. For instance, you ask a child who probably is a bully, you pull them aside, probably in a room, let's say the principal's office. How do you feel? Why did you do this? How do you think the other person feels? How are they affected by your behavior? And what if it was you being bullied? How would you feel? So Mr. Stroud is there, and I know he can expound a bit on restorative practices, so I think that is the way to go. But we also have to look at the parents, because parents are making our job as teachers really, really hard because they are not doing what they ought to do at home. So we have to spend 6 or 4 hours in school teaching curriculum, of course, instilling values, and yet still doing what the parents are supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Some of my students, proud of you. Yes, but the point that she's making is a legitimate one. We do have to, listen, we have to get to the place where we get persons, parents, the children themselves take responsibility for their actions. And the restorative approach is one of the ways. I know officer may be fully aware of how the juvenile system works. It's one of the methodologies that we use within the juvenile court system, where you use the diversions, and so giving the children an opportunity to recognize where they've gone wrong and take accountability. It's not about excusing wrong behavior. It's about giving children an opportunity. You see, one of the things that we have to be careful about is that if we continue to just use, as I said, I am not opposed to any method, the physical methodologies or whatever the case may be, but if it's the only method we use, the children will become desensitized to it and eventually will not be effective. I am proposing, and I'm saying here, as a last resort, we have something on the table. I'm not taking off the table and say, but we have it as the last resort. However, you need to use the other methodologies where we get children to start thinking, taking responsibility, thinking about why was I behaving in that way? Why did I do that? How did this person? I'm treating you in this way. Would I want to be treated in that way? These are the methodologies that we are using more
come back, because what I also heard from the caller is that when the child goes home, that's how he or she is treated.
And officer made that point. Officer made the point that we can't be doing the work in school and then home you kind of just go, you totally go against it. And that's why I made the point earlier on, we have to work with our parents. We have to get our parents to understand and continue to work with them. Be careful about what you expose your children to, who you expose your children to, the spaces that you allow your children to go.
October
These are the things that we have to pay attention.
the Suicide Prevention Awareness Month.
And Child Month as well.
And Child Month. Is there...
September into October.
September is the
there are some things into October.
Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. In September. Child Month, October. Is there a correlation that between the bullied and harming behaviors by children?
Yes. The truth is that type of perpetuation, that type of insistent and intentional, continuous can cause mental health issues within children, within anybody, anybody, whether it's the workplace or wherever the case may be. Somebody continues to taunt you, and if you feel that you do not have recourse, of course, that can lead. One of the things that we are doing through the counseling department is that we are continue to do assertiveness training with our children through our guidance sessions. We are beginning to. We've just recently, last week, we did some training for all of our counselors with UNICEF. We are going to introduce into the school system eventually a peer support program where we get our children to encourage others, not for they themselves to go and get themselves or cause somebody to cause them to be a target, but to encourage their peers to speak to the counselors, to speak to the teachers. When you are hurting, when there are things bothering you, what are some of the things that you can do, how you can speak assertively to someone, and how they based on how they treat you. And we are taking a deliberate and intentional approach to working with our children, to making sure that they become almost bully proof, to the point where they can speak up for themselves, say what is happening with them, whether it's parent, police, whoever the case might be, so that persons can know at an early time, so that we can start at the intervention.
It's time for us to get into the closing comments, and I'll let you have first go. But if you can, just before your final comments and admonition, just probably give some indication as to what some signs that we can look for in a bully or the bullied, so that the audience is aware, can pick up on those signs, and we can have those early interventions alluded to.
Right. So most times with the bully, they're very loud, very boisterous. They want to be the center of attention most times, and they're always trying to get attention, right? But they're not mutually exclusive. In order to recognize the bully, you have to recognize the bullied also. And you recognize the bullied by they normally in isolation, they're normally reclusive, they don't speak much, and then it's very important to twin the two, combine the two together, and to absorb them in the environment, and to see the response to the behavior. Right. And sometimes it can be very, very subtle, a little knock on the leg, the bully staring down the bullied. Right. Little things like that, and that's how it starts, at a very, very early age. So it's very important, and that's where the teachers come in to realize those micro behaviors. You notice them and you pay attention to it, so you can nip it in the bud as early as possible. You have to get the parents involved, the various shareholders. They can't do it alone. One side can do it alone, as you mentioned earlier. The different environments, they have to coexist, and in order to fight it.
Okay. Yeah. And any closing comments that you may have for parents, and you can put on your police hat.
Most definitely. I always stress it's my road march that no one is in isolation. We have to do it. We have to work together, which is why the Community Relations Department, we've been so instrumental in getting the police stations involved in the schools with the various clubs, the Boys and Girls Club. We have programs with the Ministry of Social Development. Of course, a lot of parents don't believe, or they believe rather, that children are absolved from prosecution of the law. But we do have the Juvenile Act, number 24, 2024, and it's very much applicable to students, especially where where their behavior comes under the umbrella of the law, or in conflict conflict with the law in terms of assault and harm and so, they can be prosecuted. Of course, there are measures in place where we would have to have a probation officer, the parents, and of course also it's not always in a punitive way that the police we are approaching. We have different mediation aspects also in order to, there are a lot of negative effects that can come from a student getting involved in the criminal justice system at an early age in terms of the development, getting a good job and so we do care, and I think that's why the law is designed in such a way to protect our children, because even the bullies themselves, they are victims, right? And that's what a lot of people need to realize. So just want the public to know that your RGPF cares, the commissioner cares. That's why we're implementing so many different programs. We're in the schools. We're getting in touch with our shareholders. It's a beautiful thing. I want to admonish my good friend there that even at the PTA meetings, it's very good that they can incorporate the police officers also. We can speak to the parents, let them know, of course, they have their rights, the teachers have their rights also. They need to be respected, mutually respected amongst each other. And if we all come together and work together, I believe that we can curb this problem in our society.
Okay. Yeah. Montee, your final comments?
Well, Colin, and to all the viewers, every time I have such a conversation, I always believe in this should be a means to solutions, And I think we've dabbled in a lot of the different problems, which one main thing seems to be social. And I say social from the standpoint of how we nurture our children, right? And how we set them up to go into this world, right? We as parents have to do that important job. It's not an easy job by any stretch of the imagination, right? And we have to always put our best foot forward. I think sometimes, and I don't want to be the only voice for parents, but sometimes I've heard utterances from persons say, okay, yes, we import a lot of the new ways that we do things, because references been made about there are new ways and new skills and whatever the case, but there's always that people always make into this nostalgic back in a time when this wasn't happening and that wasn't happening. So we have to create that balance, right? In that when we import in these things and who we importing it from, because the layman can argue that we are importing systems and ways of dealing with parenting from societies that is plagued by violence. Nobody has to, I don't have to talk about it. We see it on the news every time. Is that school shooting? Is that this? Is that that? Right? So sometimes we have to now do our own, introspection, understand whether or not do we take the positives. So, because I believe in every system there are positives and negatives, so we have to be careful that when we bring in things on board, that we don't lose ourselves in the process. Our Caribbean, our old ways of doing things, we throw the bad parts, but we have to embrace the parts that have always made us who we are. Right? And I think moving forward, that is the way we have to look at things on a holistic, because ultimately, if we do not do what we have to do as parents and as a society as a whole, the problem is going to continue to be exacerbated. And the same, they use this, they use that, is not a use. It's we, the parents, and we, the people that put together the framework to make sure that and put in the guardrails for the youths of tomorrow.
All right, thanks. Person?
The human being is three-dimensional. He is psychomotor, he is affective, he is cognitive. When we work with children, we do our best to try and see how we can make sure that we work with them from those three domains. We teach them values, and whether it's at school, we try to reinforce some of those things, whether it's guidance sessions, counselors, teachers. We require and we ask our parents to cooperate with us. Don't fight against what we do. Make sure that you understand that we have good intentions for your children. We want to make sure that the interventions that we implement within the school system are for the betterment of our children, ultimately the betterment of our society. We try our best. Our cognitively, when we work with the children, you could ask them the questions, they can answer you. So they know it cognitively. What we have to get to the places that affective domain where the attitudes are changed. And that could only happen through the value systems, teaching the values, and we need a backup. While we do it at school, we also need parents to make sure that at home we reinforce it by you, one, teaching it as well, but also modeling it. Make sure that what you ask your children to do, you're doing it too. Because we used to talk about the old ways of do as I say but not as I do. That can't work. They need to see us actually doing what we say. And if we do that as teachers, as the models of the adults in the system, their children need to see us actually doing what we ask them to do. And I think we'll get there.
Mr. Preston Stroud, Mr. Montee Greenidge, Corporal Michael Redhead, thank you all so very much for sharing, and to you, our viewers and listeners, for participating in this evening's program. It is a serious issue, but we can address it. We can do better. The second greatest commandment, do unto others as you like them do unto you. If we instill this, we'll all be better off. Have yourselves a wonderful evening, and look forward to being with you again in the next 6 days, 22.5 hours. Good evening. Take good care.